There we go.
Okay.
No, she's lost this.
Okay. All right.
The zucchini lady is lost. Alright, it's alright, we can wait. It's not 11 yet, is it?
Yeah.
We have to be on time.
No.
There is no time,
There is no time. You know that.
but these are going to be very short sessions, very long lunch. We do this in Toronto. They have me speaking twice a day for 2 days. To me, it can get to the point of like, beating a dead horse. Yeah, this is an invitation, seriously. And what the invitation is, comes with a warning. Just going to attempt to warn you of some of the pitfalls of entertaining non-duality, basically, because there's something going on that's quite dominant, which is the sense of being what you're not. Yeah? It arises pretty quickly. I think some research says the brain produces the sense of being the owner, the doer, the thinker, yeah, the feeler, in about 1.5 seconds. So if you look at time, and most processes that are introduced to us about spirituality are time-based. You're going to do something, and yet you may not see that when the doing is occurring, it's being claimed to imply the doer. Yeah. So it's so fast that, let's say, if you're sitting down to meditate, and I'm not saying it always has to succeed. It will not succeed if you can see it. Yeah. Because you're before everything. So, let's say you sit down to meditate, the mental state has already claimed that to imply the meditator. So now, while we're hoping the meditation is leading us somewhere, there's another agenda going on which is reinforcing the idea of being the meditator. So the bondage of self is not meditate or not to meditate, it's the meditator. The feeling that you're the one that's doing something. Yeah? So if you look at, you probably have enough evidence here, everyone does, if you could just have a different way of seeing it, that you're not going to do yourself out of the doer. Yeah? The system is not going to get itself out of the system. You have to have seen that by now. Yeah? And the system is here to get something. Now, if the system was at the mall, yeah, if it was at a clothes store, if it was at the nursery, it could succeed. Yeah, if it was looking for a shrub, it was looking for a pair of pants, it was looking for a coffee, that view could succeed. Yeah, you're going to find something that you're not. Yeah, you're going to look and, hey, I like those pants, I like that. But the application of that to what you are doesn't work. Yeah, because you run into this little conundrum. You're now using what you're looking for to find what you're looking for. Just let it hit. It's just so obvious that it's like you don't need 30 wrenches into the works. You just need 1 or 2. And when the system stops, something becomes obvious. Yeah? Not to the system, but something becomes obvious outside the system. So suddenly, where you were looking from is seen. You see it. You see the manufacturing of a point of view. Yeah? And how that point of view is reinforced, it's maintained, and its mechanism of this magic trick is time, the idea of time. So in time, something that is impossible can seem to be possible, yeah? Like separation, like being unloved and all this stuff, yeah? So suddenly, impossibilities, I mean literal impossibilities, in time can appear to be possible to that which is dreaming, which is us, yeah? The dreaming we're in now is of time and then of space. You need the stage for this show to go on, and there's time involved, yeah? So, we started the other night. It's just the old sheep and lion thing. Why is the lion not getting it's a lion? You would think if you're a lion, like they say, some of the cryptic statements like you are what you're looking for, then how long would it take to get that? Yeah, I mean, really, how is it constantly escaping us, the obviousness of it? There must be some kind of obscuring factor, yeah? And if you start sensing that, you'll find that there isn't, the obscuring factor is you, really, yeah? It's sort of like the person's big head in the movie theater ends up to be yours, yeah? If that big head and you can't sit down, yeah? So what are you going to do? Are you going to keep trying to become like a lion, fundamentally defined as a sheep? Because it doesn't matter, it can go on for a lifetime. A lion masquerading as a sheep can try to become like itself for fucking lifetime. Yeah, it can go on and on and on, and there are a lot of mechanisms that are available here that will support that. It will, because there's money involved. Yeah, so the mental state is so obvious, just see it, you know. The mental state is totally interested in becoming, but has no interest in being. It doesn't. If you present a case, you are already that. You'll lose so many people quickly. Yeah. If you present a case of describing something and say you could be that, you'll fucking get people coming and seeing you year after year, signing up for your newsletter. What's the new intensive this week? Oh, how to integrate awakening into everyday life. Give me a freaking break. You know what I mean? It just makes no freaking sense. So there's got to be something going on that we can't get the simple message, obviously. And you see, the more interest you have in it, the farther away it seems. You got to get it. You got to get why the party sucks all the time when you arrive is because you have arrived. Yeah, you heard great things about the party, and you expect it's going to be great, and when you get there, it sucks. Yeah, so it's what we see. You know, like a dog today, a Labrador, isn't being upset by what's not happening. Yeah, it's not thinking, it doesn't have the memories of playing fetch last week and hoping it'll be playing fetch next week, yeah? It's just defined by its system to be here, yeah, it is. And I'll tell you, it looks like it's having a lot more fun than most of us are, yeah? So what's happening with the mental state? The mental state, I give it a term called selfing, yeah? I don't want to call it a self, that's giving it too much credit. The selfing implies a self. So when you are listening to the narration in one's head, that's selfing. And it's backed up by memory, because if you go into the memory, not you, if there's a going into the memory pictures us as a body. When you're remembering yourself 4 years ago in Australia, you're pictured as a body. When you're worrying about yourself, and 5 years from now, you're pictured as a body. The memories support the conclusion that you're a body. Yeah? So basically, the memories see you as an object that somehow has been hybrided with subject. Yeah? So when the subjectiveness is occurring, the mental state attributes that to the object. That's dualism. That's the root of duality. And what non-duality is saying is not two. It's basically saying it's not two meaning Bill and Steve. It's not two in this little movement, yeah? So sometimes you're seen as the thinker, sometimes you're the thought about. It switches all day. This is what non-duality is saying. You're not that movement, not two. It's not saying what you are, because the problem is saying what you are, it's going to be what you're not hearing it. You do not want to feed what you're not any more concepts about what you are, because you're going to have to unload it. It's driving most people freaking crazy. if they would have been better off if they never heard the word awakening. They would have. Jesus Christ, now I have another thing to fucking obsess over. I was having a great time enjoying my muffin, and now, am I using this time wisely? It's like slavery, constant slavery. Yeah? It's like constant slavery. It is. And it will march and march and march into the world of becoming. Yeah, in a way of avoiding the being that it already is. Yeah, so if it's true, those cryptic statements are true, you are what you're looking for, then you have to see the looking for it as the obscuring. Yes? If you are what you're looking for, then the looking for it would be the obscuring of it. Yeah, it's just that simple. It doesn't matter how you're looking or what you're looking at or where you're looking at, it's the looking, yeah? It doesn't matter, it's different when you're in a retreat than it is when you're in fucking St. Kilda's. It's the looking, yeah? Because the looking for it is not reinforcing what you're looking for, it's reinforcing what you're not, yeah? The idea of being the looker. Now, you can go along that line and have 800 examples with the hope someone told you if you can weather the 800 examples, it will finally work as the 801st. It doesn't. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. Yeah? The incorrection doesn't correct itself. It's wanting to correct itself reinforces the incorrection. It's just that simple. Yeah? We have a statement in AA recovery, It's a famous book called The Big Book, and it's a linear process. It's for the action figure, yes? It's sort of like let's say if you woke up, supposedly, and you had diabetes, would you stop shooting insulin?
Yeah.
Of course not. The body has diabetes. Well, the body has alcoholism. So people think that, if they wake up, they can go drink again, and then they're drunk fucking Buddhists. They're drunk non-duality people. Yeah? Because they're mixing the two. Yeah? This has its own little proclivities, its own agenda. Yes? And then there's the context. This isn't going to exile you or limit your opportunity to arrive at the context because you are the context. Yeah? This is an appearance in the context. The appearance can't affect the context. The context can affect the appearance, but the appearance can't affect the context. Yes? It's like the sky. A huge, like today, a beautiful one. A huge, beautiful, empty sky. And then there's tons of clouds moving in. Do any of those clouds affect the sky? We call it the sky, but we're mistaking the clouds for the sky, because the sky is the space that allows the clouds to appear. That's what mind is. Yeah. So here it goes. All right. So we have 4th of July explosions every day. Does it rip the sky open? No. When a bird shits, does it land on the sky? No. It lands on your car, right? When it rains, this gets wet. The sky doesn't get wet. So basically, the mind is sky-like. It allows everything to appear in it, and yet is not affected by any of the appearances. Why not let a little of that come into your daily life, and you'll be able to see over time that you're traveling lighter. Yeah? The only way you're going to travel lighter as a cloud is by seeing you're not a cloud. You don't. Getting a bigger, better, more of a cloud isn't going to travel lighter. It isn't. Let's say you get into meditation as producing effects, and then that one morning you have to go to work early and you miss the meditation. The narrative is, your whole day's going to suck, so at noon you go run home to do your 45 minutes. That's not freedom. You're now bound to meditation. Meditation is the condition you now have set up to keep you from what you are. Yeah. All the while the story is leading you to what you are. It isn't. It's bizarro world here. The mental state is you're looking backwards all freaking day. The mental state's agenda is totally bizarro world. It wants you to get into what you can't be out of. So it has us believing we can be out of the moment. This is one of its best heists. It's convinced us we can be out of the moment, which provokes what? An urge to get into the moment. Yeah? And then suddenly, that urge produces businesses, and so books are written, how to get into the moment. And then you don't even finish the whole book usually. You just wait for the next edition, which is how to really get into the moment. And then how to really get into the moment. And basically all predicated on an insane idea that you could be out of a moment. This does not have that power. It doesn't. This doesn't move mountains. This one makes mountains seem to appear. It doesn't move any freaking thing. Yeah. So this whole idea of getting into the moment, Paul, you look like you're in the moment. Yes. Yes. What did you do? Absolutely nothing. Then how? Because I realize I can't be out of a moment. That's simple. Period. End of story. I don't care. It makes it look like, this is going to make it look like the most you've ever been out of a moment. I'm not out of a moment. You know, just be done with it. Really, please. Be freaking done with it. You can't be out of a moment. Yeah, all right? And then, okay, I want to get out of something. It's driving me freaking crazy. Yes, unfortunately, you're calling it you. So when you get out of that you, you're going to be in another you that's from that you. So your escape's going to be very temporary. And then you're going to get sucked back into the vortex that you'd like to get out of. And then you'll be looking for a stable condition in that which is unstable. And you'll be looking for evidence that you're stable, and what you're going to get is evidence that you're not stable. So that the awakening will suddenly appear to be able to be lost. Yeah. And then now you have a new fear to live under. Am I still awake? What? The doctor is shooting you up with a disease. Oh no, you need another shot. So you can't be out of a moment. So why the hell do you need to get in? Yeah, you can. So, and opposite, you can't be in what you think you're in. You're not a long-lasting, independent, separate thing. Yeah. No matter how much the head says it or implies it or has memories of it and forecasts it for a future, it's not so. So so now you're trying to get out of what you can't be in, which is this idea of self, and you're trying to get into what you can't be out of. That's called bizarro world. Yeah? So if that's and these are basic formats. These are theme setters. Yeah? It's a theme setter. You basically, all the building blocks of the day are going to be built on this shaky foundation. Yes. So, okay. So then what happens? I don't know. Hopefully you see that this thing's failed. Yeah? You see that it's failed. You see, like if you were in an amusement park and they had that thing where there's a crane and there's all these little fluffy toys and you put the money in and you're hoping to get the one little like koala bear. Yeah, and you keep missing it. Yeah? You're blaming on you, but it doesn't have the ability to get it. You're not going to get what you already are. So let's change the thing. So let's say you go to a meeting and someone says, all right, what you are is indescribable, incomprehensible, and then spends 45 minutes trying to describe it and trying to make it comprehensible. When you do that, you've diluted the message because you're trying to fit it into the freaking system. You're trying to make it malleable to the system. Non-duality is so beautiful because it doesn't budge. You can't use it as a skillful means. It will fail you. Yeah? So if you're in a situation where you feel it's really bad and you want to get out and you try to use the ladder of non-duality, its success is leaving you exactly where you are with your own devices so that you finally realize they're not your devices. Yeah? Or you don't need to change the devices unless you're like, for me, I hadn't needed recovery because I was running into people out there. Things were happening. I was very, very destructive in so many manners. So the action figure had to get corrected by grace and a way of life. But basically, it's not a chariot of the gods. I'm not going to work on this thing for 50 years. It's like polishing a fucking matte colored bumper. It's not going to get a shine on it. Yeah, it's so. This thing isn't burning down houses. I'm not ripping things off. I need absolutely no observation during the day. I really don't. So when people ask me how I am, I have no idea. I haven't checked in months, you know. How am I? Let me see. I really don't know how I am because it fluctuates, yes? But what I am, yaha, yes. I don't want to know what I am either because I'm being what I am, yes? I realize you can't find what you are completely. You don't arrive there by going to it. You realize what you're using to get there has failed. Simply based because you are what you're looking for. You can't say that about anything else. You'll be successful looking for the new shoes and stuff like that because you are not a shoe. But you can apply that same movement to try to find yourself. That's the biggest deterrent. So it's a loss of interest because the interest right now has been commandeered. And like Ramana Maharshi says it so beautifully in his writings, and he says it in a lot of different ways, but the one I remember is, this is the condition. There's a presupposing, and pre is the important word here. So supposing is like assuming, just taking for granted. You don't know. You know where it's like we do it a lot. We assume a store is open without calling them. And then when we drive there and it's closed, we're like surprised. You know, we could have just called and they're not open on Sunday, but we assumed, packed up the car, expectations arose. Oh, it's going to be great, and then, oh, disappointment because it's closed. Yeah, that's an assumption. It wasn't based on facts. So there's a presupposing right now. This is what the mental state's doing. That a non-existent thing, this, yes, is what's existing. So the mental state has mixed up the object with the subject and thinks the subject is an attribute of the object. The narrative is always that you're the seeing, you're the hearing. In other words, the body is the seeing, the body is the hearing, the body is the feeling, the body is the tasting, the body is the smelling. Yet in fact, it's not so. You would say that's consciousness, yeah? So consciousness is seeing, consciousness is feeling, consciousness is tasting and touching and doing and thinking, and all this is happening because of consciousness. That's the light that allows that to occur, yeah? So all you need is 2 minutes listening to the narrative. The narrative assumes consciousness to be something you have. You don't have to go any farther than that. It's just taken what it has nothing to do with and attributed it to an object. So what happens? Seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching is now interpreted to imply the seer and the seen, yeah? Which is the duality. Yeah? Seer, seen, hearer, heard. Yeah? And the emphasis on the seer and the seen loses an emphasis on the seen. Yeah? So right now we're all seeing, but a lot of us are in a state of listening to a story or an interpretation of the seeing that implies the seeing implies a seer. And let's put all the attention on that, because there'll be tons of things you see all day, but there'll only be one seer all day. So now all the seeing is being used to reinforce the seer. Yeah? It will allow you to see tons of different things, but it won't allow you to be a different seer. Yes? So all the seeing gets claimed all day, gets claimed to imply the seer. Not only that, there's 5. There's hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. So all the feelings are attributed to one feeler. This is the bondage of self. It's an activity. No one has been bound. It's appearing that we're bound based on these conditions. The conditions is of ignorance, really. We're placing, so here Ramana says, presupposing a non-existent thing, being existing obviously, wanting to get salvation for the non-existent thing. I mean, you don't have to go farther than that, do you? You don't need 800 pages of a scripture. That will do. If you hear it and it seems to fit, wear it. Yeah? This is the real relief. The real relief is when the system is exposed. Yeah? It's not going to stop it, but you'll lose interest in it. And if you lose interest in it, you're going to gain interest in unimaginable possibilities like serenity and peace and things like that, which you're never going to arrive at. It's losing interest in the arriver. That's when it becomes obvious. Yeah? And if it's not it's a loss of interest, really. You lose a lot of interest in the false little fucking tributaries, and you don't move. Like we said, the station and the trains, all the different trains coming in and out. People you're getting off and on, but basically the station's always there. Yeah? So what happens? The trains leave, they come back. Yes? The station is the dominant fact. Well, that's what we're attempting to share here. Not by talking about the fact, but by talking about what you're not, so what you are recognizes it. Yeah? So people, like when I used to do a lot of talks, could happen today, they would complain to the handler, the person who set it up, hey, everything this guy says goes over my head. So this guy in LA, my friend Kyle, asked me, hey Paul, what about that? What about everyone, the shit's going over everyone's head? I said, that's where I'm aiming. I'm not aiming, yes? I'm aiming over the head because I realize to talk to what you're not about what you are doesn't go anywhere. I want to talk to what you are about what you're not. I do, yeah? So I know pretty much, like, a lot of talks, they take a lot of pauses, To me, the sense of self just regroups then. What we want to do is overwhelm the system. So we throw one little idea, you go, wait, I got that, but then another one will be. And the juggler can't keep them all going. And finally, all the balls fall, and there's that view. Yes, see? Because you'll see something that you believe always goes, stop, and something continues. And it's not of that which stopped. Yeah? Now, finally, even though the Monopoly game is going on, you have now been not even placed because you've never left square zero. And then you've realized you've been playing the game from square 4. Yeah? With the hopes of trying to get to square 0 as a mythical fucking place. You never left square 0. Square 4 appears in square 0. Every other square appears in square 0. You've never moved. I feel Jesus, in some respects, there's a great story, the prodigal son. And who knows? I should have wore that t-shirt. I have a nice t-shirt with Jesus image, and it says, I never said that. I have it, but I didn't wear it, whatever. I never said that, but the prodigal son's a pretty cool story, where the guy has a nice situation, he goes out, starts partying, screwing around, and he's feeling guilty. He feels like he really hurt his father, and he doesn't deserve all that good stuff, and his life is just falling and tumbling more and more into bottoms, and one day he's waking up in a pigsty, fighting some pigs for a cob of corn, and the system collapses, yeah? The system collapses, and at that second, his father's there with a new robe, a ring, and saying, we got a huge feast ready for you. Now, that second is now. The timelessness, and that's the invitation, its timelessness is always available at all times. Time does not filter timelessness. Timelessness inserts every second of time. Yeah? So as soon as the guy gave up the ghost of feeling he fucked up and this and that, there was that possibility. Not he had to work on it, you know, no, it was like that. It didn't take 3 pages, like, he was right there, what? Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's like, yeah. And once you get a glimpse of it, once you get, if you're looking at in movement, as a movement, you miss it. It's when the pause occurs, things are revealed. You'll see how fast you're moving. The seeking is like a dry current. You're not wet by it, but you're influenced by it incredibly. So you're always moving for the next bigger, better moment. It's slavery. It's all slavery in a lot of ways. It's like a pack mule. The beast of burden is its own identification. Yes? Yeah. So I started doing the talks after I was going to satsang, and I felt something was missing. Because even where I was, there was subject-object. The teacher was a couple feet higher. You know, everyone thought he was awake or she was awake. They wanted to be awake, but they were not awake. What? It's like, Jesus Christ. So, and then you'd have to sit and wait until he escaped. You'd have to sit and, all right, everyone meditate for a few minutes while he gets into the van and gets out of here. You know, he's like, wait a minute, something's off. And he was from a Zen lineage, and I like this statement. He says, I'm a man standing by the river selling water. Oh, that's pretty interesting. And he says, and he started laughing. He says, it's even funnier than that. I'm a man standing in the river selling water. That's when I left and never went back, because I felt wet. I was hoping to buy water, but I felt wet. Yeah? Wait a minute. Why would I freaking be on a line to buy water if I'm drenched? And then, obviously, stuff gets reverse engineered, and you said it was my wanting to get wet, which was causing the dryness. You Oops. And that's fundamentally, you see that move over and over again when it's revealed. You keep seeing it. You see one little movement is 1,000 miles. There's a great Zen thing called Faith Mind. You ever hear of it? Beautiful. It's only a couple pages. There's a lot of different translations, but this one I love. It says, you can't use activity to produce stillness. That would be activity. What are they doing? They're trying to corral you. They're trying to stop, you know, picking this tool up, doing this tool, doing this, another fucking methodology like that. Just stop it for a second so that something that's never left can catch up with you, really. Yeah? And then maybe you'll have a real intimacy that you are what you're looking for. Yeah? And that it's never going to be seen because you're the seeing of everything else. Yeah? The seeing of everything else can't be seen by everything else. That which is hearing can't be heard. Possible. That which is feeling can't be felt. That which is tasting can't be tasted. Yeah? You can't study what's studying. So it gets to a point where it can be a rude awakening, really. You come to terms with, you're not ever going to get it. Yeah, really. I don't give a shit who's the next one. He's not bringing anything new. Yeah. You are what you're looking for. If you don't believe that, then you're shopping in the wrong place. Because that's the essence of non-duality. The essence of non-duality is really trying to negate, yeah, what's been given meaning so that you see from here instead of looking for this from here. Yeah? So it's a simple thing. Instead of looking for what you are from what you're not, you're now going to see what you're not, looking for what you are, from what you are. Yeah? Nothing, the furniture doesn't move. You don't have to rearrange anything. It's just like a horse in front of a cart, you know? The horse and cart are still there. It's just a switcheroo, and it clicks. And now you've introduced to another modality in a sense. And that modality is not of self-centeredness. It just isn't, yeah? And so now, because you're not just, you know, your satellite dish isn't owned, yeah? It can pick up. It can pick up other, yeah? It's wide scanning, yeah? And then hopefully you'll come to know the tree by its fruits. And after years, maybe you'll see, hey, I've traveled lighter through whatever life had in store for me. What more do I want? Yeah? Take, you know, you're shooting way too high. Just, hey, ordinary dog shit awareness is awesome. Because in fact, you never get chips. You're here completely. You know, sleeping, awake. You're here completely. The mental there is an appearance in here. The mental there is an appearance in here. Yeah? If you lose interest in the mental there, you'll find in no time at all here. Yeah? And after, you know, wearing your parachute and everything like that, after you parachute into where you already are, after a few times, fuck the parachute, you know? I like the idea of the plane, having to get up 20,000 feet, but it's all, yeah, you just take away all, because there's still like a pledging allegiance to time, you know what I mean? No, it's always available at all times, you know, with no requirement necessary, other than the ones you make up, really. And with the hope, so when I heard satsangs, and I still saw the conundrum, and it's just, if you are a lion, and you hear the message you are a lion, how can that not be direct communication? If a lion informs another lion that it's a lion, I mean, is that going to take years? You would think it would be very sudden, yeah? So yet, how can that nature be blocked off from itself? Only by the nature, yeah? In other words, what I am must be believing, seemingly, it's appearing to it, that it is something else, yeah? And so now suddenly what I am becomes identified as that, and it can go so crazy, it starts looking for itself from that, yeah? And the success of all the processes we get introduced to is that they fail us. That's the success. The success is you realize, Jesus, this doesn't work. Hallelujah. Yeah? Really. And hopefully you can, like, you know, when I came into recovery, I couldn't learn from myself or fucking anyone. I mean, shit would have to be beaten into me and I would forget. But now I've noticed I can learn from others. Yeah? So I remember when I was starting all this, there was a very famous magazine, Buddhist magazine in America called Tricycle. Very nice, full color, beautiful layout. And I'd get a subscription of it. And this one month they had an article by a Western meditation teacher, yeah? Just like an editorial. And I read it, and he was talking about this phenomena he was experiencing with him and all his students. And his oldest students, who had been with him 25 years, were getting in touch with him and said, hey, nothing's fucking happening. So reading this, I just pulled the emergency on the spiritual bus. Wait a minute, these people have done this for 25 years. They're telling me nothing fucking happened. I'm getting off. Why do I want to go? I want to make sure. No. This is what we can do for each other. Yeah? We've all gone to satsangs. I think we need to have someone who comes and warns you about how what you're not is going to take this message and use it to reinforce what you're not. Yeah? If you don't see it, you're going to be at its effects. And then you're going to be a really pissed off seeker who's gone to 500 satsangs and he's not getting it. And then he's super pissed someone else got it, who's been going less meetings. And they're like, if they weren't socialized, they'd be killing each other. But they just keep sitting here, 700 meetings, on, and they're like, hey! And unfortunately, now that they've been introduced to these ideas, enlightenment, awakening, they can't enjoy anything else. Is this leading me closer to enlightenment or farther from? Hey, give me a break. So you have to see, you want a good example of the theme of what you're not. It takes a word like enlightenment, which means, one definition, cessation of all suffering, and it uses it to cause suffering. Do you need 800 more examples? You, as you're constituted, are the obscuring agent. You're looking for it is the blindness. Yeah. Just humbly throwing it out there. I don't care how slick you are, spiritual savvy you are. I mean, you may have the newest spiritual glasses of this year's model, beautiful. It doesn't freaking matter. Your looking is the blindness. You and I looking for it is the blindness. It's the active. The blindness has to be an activity. It has to be. It can only appear to be so by its activity. Yeah? So by you, the seeker, they're seeking, and then the seeker is implied. Yeah? Verbing is what's going on, and the verbing is being claimed by the mental state. And then the claiming of the verbing is used to imply a noun. This is the presupposing. So that which comes after, which is the seer, right, now gets presupposed to be before the seeing, and now is the seer. Yeah? There's seeing, then there's an idea, the seeing implies a seer, and then it goes, and now the seer is what's seeing. That's the little trick. You can see it. It can only appear through time, so that which comes after implies it's before, which shuts down all recognition you are before. Now the before becomes after, and you start looking for it. You and I have the eyes to see. We have the eyes to see. You just have to hear the information to warn you of these stupid little pitfalls, so you can just move ahead and, just fucking, how many people are driven crazy by spiritual seekers? Can you imagine 5 hours of someone talking to you about, what I get is calls, I disappeared for 2 weeks. I said, well, who's there to tell me that? What do you mean you disappeared for 2 weeks? Give me a fucking break. There's been a disappearance of myself. Oh yeah? There is no disappearance, there's only an appearance. You see you're not the appearance, there's no need for a disappearance. There's no disappearance of self, because there has never been a real appearance of self. There's an appearance of self. Yeah? You see you're not that, and then that's that. Yeah? Like it says, the non-existent thing is seeking salvation for itself. If salvation was based on getting out of the non-existent thing, hallelujah, we're all in inherent salvation. You don't need to be saved from a non-existent thing. It doesn't exist, yeah? And if it doesn't exist, does it come back and you have to fight it every year? No, it doesn't exist. You're all there is, yeah? Everything here reaches a level of appearance, and that's all. Everything is appearing to what is, yeah? There's no need for anything to disappear, yeah? It's just to see you're not appearances, that's all. There you go, and the appearances will do whatever they're doing, and there will be another requirement taken off the board. So I've got to have someone was calling me, no thought, if you're waiting for no thought, you're going to be waiting a long fucking time. I'm living in no thought. Yeah, well, that was a thought, really. But that thought isn't, it's just crazy. So, I don't know. I hope it becomes clearer and clearer to you that you're the obscuring agent. Yeah? So hopefully, and you don't stop looking, you just realize you're not that which is looking. Yeah? The stopping isn't about what's looking, what's not looking. You just see you're not that. Yeah? You don't have to do anything. Nothing has to change. It's just now the horse, they're in rightful position, yes? Now everything becomes clear, blue is blue, red is red, yeah? And you never have to waste another second looking for what can't be found. And then you'll really see the nature of what you're not. You'll really see it. It misses what's already here. It does. It doesn't have the ability to see what's already here. It can recognize what comes and goes, but it can't recognize what's here. You know, like that's the old, like the story with the water in the river. You're not recognizing you're wet because you've always been wet. It's like the fish doesn't know it's wet or not. It's always been wet. Yeah. It would be absurd for the fish to try to get wet. It seems ridiculous. Yeah? It's in the ocean. But that's sort of what's happening now. And I'm just basically saying in a humble way, knock it the fuck off. And you can sense it in the room. What more verification do you need? Yeah, you sense something. The funny thing, if you took a spiritual blood test, it would come back 0.00. I have no interest in this as a topic, really. I wasn't talking about this all the way coming up here. I was talking about, I like this coffee. It's pretty good. Yeah. Why would you want to talk about what you are? It's just a simple, just talk about what you're not. Just inform. It works this way. I was just going along with the train of satsang, starting to go to different continents, do this, do that. It would have been the same. Then I saw exactly the structure of what was happening. And I saw exactly that I am the act of obscuring what I am to what I am. Yeah? So no more wasted time. Like, it was so funny. I used to speak at a spiritual bookstore, and they had so many books. They would be surrounding the counter. And so this one night I finished the talk, and there was a book, like 900 pages, and the title was Consciousness. And I was going, Jesus Christ, we are consciousness, reading a book about consciousness. It's just 900 pages. 900 pages. Jesus. Just fucking, it's unbelievable. So, yeah. Of course the head's going to tell you, oh, this sucks, whatever, but that's not you. Why do you need to be defined and tailored and sized up by that? It's got an incredible agenda. It wants to survive as itself. It needs you. It's like a blow-up doll that's always leaking. And the interest is the air. It just wants us to be engaged in it constantly, demanding, And And then if you see its emptiness, it will still believe, it will still try to imply relevance that it can block you off from the sunlight of the Spirit. Unless you deal with me, you're never going to be clear. You're as clear as fucking day. Before has never had a weather front move in on it, ever. What you are has never been blocked by any freaking thing. We're giving too much relevance to that which is irrelevant. Yes? Just see it, let it break down. You will see it. I don't mean study, I mean see. In the seeing of it, it breaks down under that scrutiny. Yeah? There's no need, you don't need to do an autopsy because it never existed. You just see it. And in the seeing it, you'll get a sense, I'm not that. And in that sense, you'll get a sense of what you are. You're the seeing of what you're not. When you come and see what you're not, there's going to be an intimation of what you are by seeing what you're not. And then you're on to something, yeah? Then you found now you found a non-place to rest. Yeah. So any questions? Going once, twice.
I've just recently had this observation that I want to own, like the experience of. It's just like the self wants to step in and own everything. I'm doing that. That's me.
Yes.
Ownership of it.
Yes.
It's been an really interesting observation, and that I'm observing that I want to own everything.
And that I observing isn't you either.
Yes.
What's observing everything isn't you. You are an observation point. That it's observing, it's sort of like looking in a telescope and only seeing, yeah? The way selfing looks for a reflection. Any surface that it can reflect itself on. So that idea of being a witness, I'm not a believer of it. I think it's just a mental statement. Yeah. I just do. Yeah, so when you, let's say here, the aperture's there. Now the aperture is open, so you've seen the first aperture. Yeah? But then the second aperture can be claimed, and now you are the one who's clear. Yeah? So as soon as the you appears, it locks the aperture. If you can see, yeah, let that go, it's going to open up to more. Yeah. And then there's a phenomena called the 100 monkeys syndrome, in a sense, where you don't have to be vigilant, you've been vigilant enough, yeah? And then it goes this, and then boom, that, yeah. Because it's mind, what we are precedes everything, yeah? Everything does not define mind unless mind wants it to look that way. Yeah? So you can look at, there are people, like I used to always love the Don Juan books when I was growing up, right? And then a lot of people attacked Carlos Castaneda, said he's a phony, there was no Don Juan. It didn't matter. Yeah? It didn't matter. The mind used that to trigger itself, yeah? Don't think it's any person who's the giver of the message. The best description would be more like a hose and water, yeah? Don't fucking blame the water on the hose, yes? And don't look at the hose as an embodiment of the water. It isn't. The hose has its blind spots, but what can move through is of us, yeah? Yeah. Not of me, of us, yeah. So don't get fooled. The message is just this simple. If you believe in non-duality, and you believe you are what you're looking for, you must come to the confusion of then why is it not fucking seemingly happening in a sense? And why I know it, I have an intellectual understanding, but that ain't doing it either, because you're feeding the obscuring with more obscuration. Like you say in AA, self-knowledge avails us nothing. So the selfing is using knowledge to build up its fucking case. Yeah, you're thinking you're acquiring new wisdom, you're being laid down with more heaviness.
It sounds very exhausting, that whole process, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, that's why people drink and use and everything like that. They're trying to get out of it as it, though. Yeah? People, I know many addicts and alcoholics, they've killed themselves because they couldn't see that which was driving them crazy as something other than them. They thought the whole package had to go because they were in the act of being identified as what they're not. If you want to look at original shit, the original addiction is the mental state's addiction to self. The idea of being the doer, the thinker, the feeler. It's an addiction. And that's why it causes an anxiety and a contraction that's quite uncomfortable. So then this ignorant idea starts looking for relief, and those things become the new addictions. Yeah? And now you have bigger problems by your solution. So the solution to being driven by crazy by self was to try to get out of self, which put me more in self. And we keep not seeing, hey, I'm it, you know, I'm the big head in the theater. You know, it can't be me. Well, that's beautiful because it ain't. Yeah, but it's in the idea of being, it's a you. See, the head, the narration of the head for everyone is a narration that produces and implies a you, a you. Then there's the identification with it, the drops off, and now it's you. Yeah? Whew. And then there's a coronation event, and then that you is crowned me. Now you're really up the ass of self, and that's where you need to, like, divine proctologists. You have to, you're so up there, it's going to take like a giant to bring you out. So people do a weekend of ayahuasca. They have to shock the whole fucking thing just to get a sense of being out of that ass. Yeah? It's incredible. So yeah, you want to get out, but you can't get out of self as self. I don't know how many thousands of ways you can put it. Why can't I get out of self as self? Because you're not self. Yes? So a product of the system, though wishing and having a huge story about wanting to get out of the system, is captured of the system. Yeah? Wherever it goes, there's the system. Yeah? It thinks it's in a system. It is the system. You think you're on a ride here. You are the ride. Yeah. You are the ride. This isn't on a ride. This is the ride. Yes?
Is it correct to say that another way of putting verbing is to say that which precedes?
Well, it's only used as a pointing, because it's only because the presupposing of after before. So yeah, you would like it, because if you see in the narration, the noun is placed first, where it's actually verbing. Yeah, I'll give you a good example. We use this terminology selfing, and then that implies a self. So selfing is a verb that is in that verb. It's like the verb is the act of being identified as self. There's not the act of being identified as the verb and self's a noun. It's the whole verb. The verb of selfing is the act of being identified as self. So the verb is implying a noun, yeah? So that to me is selfing, the act of being identified as self. Okay, so people get the message like this. They say, oh, I got the message, Paul. They call me, and then they proceed to tell me they've been selfing all day. See? That's an illustration of the fucking problem. Yeah? Because now they got the idea of selfing, but they didn't see the production of self because they're speaking from a self, saying, I've been selfing all day. Yeah? So the noun now is there. So they're a perfect illustration. They're proclaiming they got the solution. They're the problem appearing. So they go on and keep telling me, all right, so Paul, on a regular day of Pauling, if Paul is Pauling like 60% on a bad day, is it 60% of Pauling? You know, on a good day, it's like 20% of Pauling, and he goes on and on and on. Already, the whole basis of the talk was based on the noun. There's a Paul that's doing the Pauling. That's the illusion.
Yeah.
There's Pauling that is used to imply the Paul. The Pauling will go on. It doesn't, but you can see the projection of the noun. Yeah? You can let the light be the verbing and then see how it's used to project a noun. Yeah? So suddenly you'll see it's selfing that's producing Paul. It isn't Paul that's doing selfing. That's the horse in front of the cart. Yes? You see it? In the head, the self comes after. So there's something that happens after that's presupposed to be before. That's the magic trick of the mental state. It has you starting at the after, which immediately is in a denial of the before, because the before would thrust this into question. So now there is no before. You're the Alpha and the Omega. You're it. Yeah, and then you may make up gods and shit like that are after you. You're the bigger God player than God. And so now the God is implied to be before, but you're the God. Yeah? You're the one that's going to know God. You're not going to have the revelation of it knowing as you. You'll be it. You'll still be the before. You don't need to go to the 800 question. Just see the math. The math is, the mental math, the primary number is 1. And in the other math, the primary number is 0. That's it. There is no noun. There's just verbing. Verbing, verbing. So when I was taken over this by addiction and it caused incredibly crazy behavior, I did not believe deeply I was responsible for it, because it was like I was dancing with a gorilla and I'm going to stop when the gorilla wants to stop. Something had taken over this mechanism and I was apt to do almost anything because I did. Yeah? Now, if the bondage of self is strong, the self is going to harvest tons of guilt and shame based on those behaviors that you had no power over. Where is the freedom? Where is the forgiveness? You're bound by believing you're the doer, even contrary to tons of information that you're not the doer. Then you're not going to convince the narrative. Its programming, its source code is you're the doer. You're the feeler, you're the taster, you're the toucher. You're not going to make it a service animal. You're not going to fucking rehab it. Yeah? The best treatment you can apply to it is a loss of interest in it. And you're not going to lose interest in it as it. You're not. It's wanting to lose interest in it is interest in it. Yeah, see it. It's so clear. And then you'll be I don't know, fuck. Then what do they think? You're like superhuman? Fucking have bad days, but it's not you. Good days, it's not you either. Peak experience, not yours. Down, not yours. This, as soon as you grab this, then you got to defend against that. No fucking way. Yeah, like the screen in a movie, 800 different genres can appear on it. It can play like a whole week of melodramas. It doesn't become melodramatic, the screen. It doesn't. Yeah? It doesn't matter how long the movie, like fucking The Irishman, Jesus Christ, that was a long movie. That on, you're not going to become an Irishman. It's the screen. The screen is inherently empty. That's why it allows everything to occur. If it had one speck of objectification, there it would go. Yeah? It's just empty. That's our nature. Yeah. So, I think we're going to have lunch, yeah? I'm so happy to be here. I'm sure you're not that I'm not here. But you may come to like me down the road. Usually it takes like 2 years or so. I didn't fuck that guy. I don't like him. Yeah. No, it's just to see the sun. Yeah. I remember when I thought I was going to get something from this. The action figure was waiting patiently. I kept hearing nothing, but I thought, I'm going to get something. But then about 8 years ago, I realized it's going to get shit. And it's been very upset since then. Luckily, it's a beautiful place, some nice sandwiches. But it's like, not again. Stop bringing me to nothing. I'm fucking tired of it. Does anyone in the Course in Miracles here? Anyone ever read that? Yeah? I think I'm going to do a little riff on it the next period. There's a nice section, if we have one. Do you have the book here? No? I think I have it on my phone. What? Oh, you have it on the phone? Yeah, I'll tell you what page. Yeah, I like riffing it because there's a segment in there which is totally about what we're not. Defined beautifully, very well said, and every sentence is about what you're not. Never says a damn thing about what you are. It just keeps, because it's talking to what you are. Yeah? You are what you're looking for. And the best way, what you are, transfiguring like this, is to hear about itself, is about hearing what it's not. That's the clear non-way. Yeah? You don't start from the false reference and start describing the truth. You start describing the false reference to the truth. So then the truth goes, hey, I'm not that. And then as soon as it's not that, because it's not that, it's a very quick release. Because the release never was bound, yeah? So the release is already pregnantly at all times available. It's just waiting. So now it's heard, I'm the all-present loveness. And then, you kick a cat that day, it's out. It doesn't work, yeah? Now you've seen what you're not, and then bingo, yeah? Yeah. So, all right, so we'll do that. Is that all right? Eat now?
Yeah.
Yes?
If anyone wants to buy.
Oh, yeah, we have
t-shirts.
shirts. Zen Bitch Slap shirts, and
And if anyone hasn't paid yet, please give the money to Amelia.
yeah. I have a little suspicion about